Hello, friends. I invite you to master some non-obvious, artistic techniques that will make your paintings vibrant, juicy, tasty, and will allow you to paint very easily, with immense pleasure. We'll do it all using this lovely, and most importantly, very easy to paint picture. As an example, we'll paint ice cream on a sunny seaside pier. Paintings like this one don't require you to be good at drawing. What you need is dexterity, knowledge of some laws of painting, and a couple of artistic secrets, which we'll talk about. Get comfortable. It's going to be interesting. The first layer, a relaxed background. We won't dwell too much on the first layer. You simply need to cover your canvas roughly, like in my example. 1. Sky. Paint a light sky with a transition from warmer purples to cooler shades. 2. Sea. Make a transition from lighter to darker. I use minty and cool deep blue colors. 3. Foreground. Just fill in the foreground along a slight diagonal. This is your future pier. 4. Optional. You can add silhouettes of a city in the distance. Important notes on materials and color, as simple as it gets. You can take a screenshot of my first layer and simply fill in your canvas by analogy. Freedom of choice. Or you can choose other paints. I use oils because I love them, but you can easily paint this picture with acrylics. It will be much faster for you. You can also use gouache or dry pastels. These will be slightly different techniques that need to be adapted. The main rule: you can use any colors you like. Pay attention so that the lightness, how light or dark a color is roughly the same as mine, but the actual color, shades, transitions, that's up to your taste. You will succeed in any case, if you just follow along with me, step by step. Don't worry about anything, and enjoy the process. Your painting will be a masterpiece, I'm sure. For the first layer, it's important to simply cover the canvas smoothly, filling in all the tiny white holes so they aren't visible. You can blend with your fingers or dry flat brushes until you achieve a uniform, smooth transition in every part of the painting. The start of the most interesting part. We begin with the second layer. This is the most interesting part. It's crucial that your canvas is completely dry. In this case, you can take some tape and stick it along the horizon line. Mountains and the pier, creating the foundation. 1. Mountain. Use a purple of a darker shade to even out the mountain. Paint a nice silhouette and fill it in completely. Go over it with your fingers so the top part of the mountain is slightly blurred. After that, take the palette knife. Pick up this same purple with some white and add such bright palette knife strokes on the mountain slopes. 2. Pier. Use brown to outline the future pier. Pay attention. Parallel lines and perspective distortion converge on the horizon. In the same way, outline the planks on the near part of the pier, using the rule of aerial perspective, working with light and shadow on the planks. Next, mix pleasant shades of light ochre and add light to our future planks. Use any warm colors you like. Key point: try to make the cracks, which we outlined in dark, remain visible and recede into the depth under the thick layers of the palette knife. A tip on technique: you can leave some gaps somewhere so that your deeper layer also peeks through in places. Pay attention to the direction of movement. It should follow the form of the object, in our case along the planks. Vitality through imperfection. Paint the distant part a bit darker and also thickly dot in the top layer of a lighter color. Slightly overlap and break up the even line of the shadow. This will give a sense of volume and very natural edge lines. An important secret: if you break the perfect evenness of a line somewhere, your painting looks more lively and natural. Therefore, it's worth making small imperfections somewhere, making lines intermittent, or, in the case of a palette knife, making such large, thick, juicy strokes along the edge. A law of painting. Furthermore, light is always denser than shadow, and therefore we usually paint the light part more thickly, refining the background: mountains, sky, boat, distant mountain. I take light blue shades on the brush, not very uniformly, and when I stroke horizontally, I get such beautiful grooves. Somewhere I blend them, and somewhere they will remain visible. In the lower part of the mountain, I lay down a soft bluish tint. Sky. I add thicker paint and blend everything with my fingers. I want the sky to be smooth, so I create maximally soft transitions. Every spot we paint must definitely be painted with different shades. Then it will be very similar to how it happens in reality. Now, I've sketched a few shades of the sky and move on to the reflection of the mountain. A detail: in the distance, I outline the future little boat. Since it is far away and is not the main part of the plot, I outline it very freely, showing the light and shadow parts and several abstract highlights. Summary of the stage. At the stage of the second layer, I try to do everything quite carefully. but I understand that I will have a few more layers on, which I can correct. Something. The key subject. How to paint something precise if you can't draw. Now let your painting dry. Well, and let's talk about how to draw something precise. If you don't know how to draw, let me say right away, there are a huge number of in-demand artists who paint and sell amazing paintings, but at the same time, don't like and don't know how to draw anything precise by hand with a pencil, and vice versa. There are plenty of wonderful graphic art masters who draw with a pencil, but don't like and don't know how to paint with oils or paints. There are also artists who can do both and often face a situation. When they draw with a pencil, it turns out precise and similar, but when they paint with a brush, it doesn't turn out similar. The catch is that depending on which tool we have in our hands, we think with different hemispheres of the brain. When we have a pencil in our hands, the logical left hemisphere switches on, which checks proportions, creates spatial perspective, can draw precisely, do correct construction. But when we have a brush in our hands, we can't think about precision, we think about textures, shades. We see incredible transitions of color and tone, and we immerse ourselves in the magic of paints. Thinking also about precision is not an easy task. A practical life hack for transferring a drawing, moreover. You can only draw well with a pencil after special training, but if you're just starting out, don't expect yourself to be a universal master. Use a convenient trick. 1. Print out the ice cream drawing or any other. 2. Rub the back of the sheet with a pastel chalk. 3. Place it on the prepared first layer and carefully transfer the drawing by pressing with a pencil. Tip: use a lighter or darker color pastel, and don't use glossy photo paper like I did. My drawing transferred poorly. Take regular printer paper and you'll easily succeed. You can secure the sheet with tape if you want. Alternative: drawing the bucket by hand. If you still fundamentally want to draw the entire picture by hand, then repeat after me. 1. Marking. With a lighter color, outline the main axis of your future little bucket and use it for symmetry. Outlining the width. 2. Perspective. Since the bucket is round, its top part will turn into an ellipse oval, in which the part farther from us will be narrower, and the part closer a bit wider. This creates a beautiful perspective distortion of all round objects. 3. Filling in. Light gray color. Fill in the entire front part of the bucket and right into the wet paint. Add darker soft shades on the sides, blending everything into a soft transition. A note about brushes. I want to say that for oil and acrylic, flat brushes are traditionally used. They are convenient not only for sketching the drawing but also for making beautiful transitions and different interesting effects. Adding texture and details to the bucket. Now I take the palette, knife and add texture. I take pink and flesh tones to create reflections from the pier and take darker and more contrasting shades of gray so that the bucket is more picturesque. You can give free rein to your creativity at this stage. Now we take a thinner brush and carefully 1. Adjust. Draw lines parallel to the lower part of the ellipse. 2. Add a little light. If something doesn't turn out ideal, it's not scary. 3. Add the top light part of the bucket's rim and a few details. Since the paint is wet, the details won't be perfect. Try to put them in order with the help of a palette knife, brushes, or fingers, but don't overdo it. Outlining the ice cream in spoons. 1. Ice cream scoops. We take a thin brush with light paint and outline several future scoops. Let some scoops overlap others. 2. Spoons. With lighter paint and a thin brush, outline the little spoons and immediately fill in their silhouettes. Now I take thick, gray-blue paint and apply a thick palette knife stroke so that the spoons also become voluminous. With a thin brush, I adjust this paint, spreading it as if turning the brush into the tiniest palette knife in the world, and I add the reflection from the ice cream and light reflexes to the metal spoons. There's an interesting point. When we paint something very attentively, with every second our gaze adjusts, and we start to see very subtle shades, some millimeters of paint. This is very good on one hand, because we can do something precisely, but on the other, we stop seeing the painting as a whole and start to nitpick it a lot. It's very important to step away from the painting and look the other way, so that the diameter of your pupil changes size again, and you can see the painting as a whole, not fixating your gaze on one single detail. Now I take a dry brush and slightly spread the palette knife, work on the bucket, creating more aesthetic pauses and a metallic effect. I also add the reflection of the ice cream and refine some details. With white paint, I paint highlights on the metal notches in that part of the bucket that is closer to us, to make it more voluminous. And I also do this with the palette knife. Don't try to do everything perfectly. Remember that you will have another layer after everything dries. And on it, it will be easier to correct imperfections. Now, with dark paint, I outline the future shadow from the bucket and fill in the entire silhouette. Blend it with my fingers to make it more transparent and soft in places. Also with my fingers, I add shades from the bucket that will be reflected in the shadow. I go over the painting once more, adding various accents and details with the palette knife. I make the bucket more solid in form. You can do the same, or you can do it differently, to your taste. Now is the time for experiments, so try different textures, different options, until it seems to you that you can't do anything more with this painting and you, basically like everything plus or minus. Something will seem successful, something not very, but at this moment, trust your inner master, knowing that later you can correct everything. Try to look not for perfect form, but rather for an impression, the feeling of a summer day, the feeling that the ice cream is cold and melting, a little and reflecting in the bucket. Rely on your inner artist's feeling. At the end of this layer, leave the canvas and let it dry thoroughly. Why? The palette knife is magic. Regarding the palette knife, there is a very interesting point here. Palette knife painting appeals to us and is impressive because it is random. Every stroke is unique and happens only once. Therefore, do not try to copy a perfectly precise painting done with a palette knife. It's impossible and unnecessary. The palette knife very accurately transfers onto the canvas what is inside you, your mood, your sensations, what you're thinking about, what music you're listening to at the moment, and what you live by. Oil painting and any painting in general is an opportunity to imprint a part of your personality into a painting, to put your emotions and unique states into it, your philosophical discoveries, and to give your soul a chance to create something amazing and beautiful. Therefore, it is very important to enjoy what you're doing, not to nitpick yourself, especially never scold yourself, but try to catch that very creative lightness for which you pick up the paints. Believe me, in paintings, it's very visible and felt with what mood you paint them. You yourself probably, walking through exhibitions or seeing paintings on the internet, respond to those in which there is this feeling, a feeling of love for what the artist does, a feeling of admiration for the moment, and you feel not only the skill and knowledge of the master, you respond to his soul, to his way of seeing the world, to his way of feeling, to his presence at the easel. You feel an invisible connection with a stranger, because paintings are, to some extent, a way of communicating with the soul of another person across eras and distances. And paintings can touch the finest strings of our soul, especially if you paint them with pleasure and inspiration. And I will not tire of repeating, inspiration should in no case be exchanged for mastery. Mastery should complement your love for painting, make the process of painting your pictures easier, and help you express your essence more brightly, boldly, and openly. If you start drawing and constantly dictate to yourself that this can't be done like this is wrong, this too, like this will probably look bad, this path will lead you not to the pleasure of creativity, but to blocks and crises. The final layer, clouds and sunset. Now, when the canvas is dry again, it's time for the final layer, clouds. I decide to add light clouds to the sky. With a brush and white paint, I add lines of future clouds. Then I take paint on my finger and start creating these clouds with soft movements. Fingers and clouds are made for each other. Mentally, I think about the clouds, remember their shape, and remember that they are always blurry and don't repeat. That I need to create the most random transitions and silhouettes. And that clouds are lighter in the upper part and heavier in the lower part, hence denser. Now I create the general silhouettes of clouds that I basically like. Now I mix a light shade of blue on the palette, adding a little pink to it to make it warmer, and get exactly the shade I like. I apply the paint to the sky, not worrying too much about neatness, because after that I smooth everything out with my fingers, mixing the shades together. Now I add even more pink and get a beautiful lilac shade, and likewise, here and there, I blend with my fingers into beautiful transitions. Sunset rays. Next we'll need to mixtures, light yellow and light pink. These will be the rays of the pre-sunset sun, and I add them to the light part of the clouds. Then, with a flat brush, I go over the entire painting, add light pink and light yellow highlights, blending them in places, creating soft effects with a rag in others. Aerial perspective. On the pier planks, I also add different shades and make them more saturated. There is an interesting law of aerial perspective. If you want your painting to be three-dimensional, paint distant plans softly and make them cooler. And what is closer to you? Foreground plans make them warmer, more saturated, more contrasting, and more textured. This way your paintings will become voluminous, and it will seem like you can step into them. It's especially cool to see this in the evening when the lighting is subdued. If you do everything right, your painting will gain additional depth. Shadows and reflections. In the shadows, I also add many different shades. Often we think that shadows are unimportant, that they are only needed to emphasize volume. But in fact, shadows give enormous space for painterly mastery. It is in the shadows that everything around us is reflected, and reflexes appear. In ordinary life, we don't pay attention to them because our mind has filters that screen out unnecessary information. But when we start painting, we need to work on removing these filters and learn to see and enhance different properties of the surrounding world in paintings. Then these paintings become even more alive, even more expressive, and very pleasant to look at. Final details. With a thin brush, I outline the shadows from the future handle on the bucket and blend them softly with my fingers. Now with thicker paint of a light color, I outline the attachment point and go over it, painting the handle itself. That detail, the small cylinder in the middle, I shift so that the side closest to us is larger, and from this cylinder on the handle, I paint a shadow, final accents and splatters. The final accents are very convenient to paint on a completely dry canvas. This gives enormous possibilities. For example, now I can take a soft brush with light yellow paint and add soft diffused light to the ice cream and other parts of the painting. And that's it. This is the painting I ended up with. I know that yours turned out different, and I will be grateful if you send photos of your paintings. Also remember, you are not alone. You can always write to me if something doesn't work out in the comments, and I will definitely advise you what to do. Sometimes a simple tip from the side can greatly advance your painting. So I will be grateful if you write to me how you like this format. I am currently experimenting with video length. I want to make video lessons interesting for you, and I will be very grateful if you write. Is it interesting for you to watch such detailed lessons? Are they not too long? Or on the contrary, maybe something should be made even more detailed in them? What topics would you like to learn? What paintings, maybe, try to paint? I thank you for responding and writing to me on Instagram, on TikTok, sometimes here in the comments. This way I feel what is interesting for you and understand. I have a lot of experience in painting and teaching, but as a blogger, I am just a beginner and trying to figure it out. I really want you to succeed. I really want there to be more of us artists, for our creative destiny to be light, beautiful, supported, and successful. I share knowledge and personal developments with pleasure. I hope they will be useful to you and make your path even more interesting.